I found the necklace in the donation bag 3 weeks after the funeral. My hands went cold. It wasn't supposed to be there. Eleanor had told me exactly where she kept it, locked in the top drawer of her jewelry box, the one with the key she wore around her wrist. But here it was, tangled in a plastic grocery bag with old scarves and costume jewelry I'd grabbed from her closet without looking. I'd already dropped off 2 bags at Goodwill. I didn't know if this was in one of them. My son Derek was standing in the doorway when I pulled it out, and the look on his face told me he knew exactly what it was. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked away. Eleanor and I had been married for 34 years. We built everything from nothing, started with a single dry cleaning shop in Pittsburgh, and turned it into 6 locations across the state. She ran the books. I ran the operations. We were a team, or at least that's what I told myself. She was quiet. Always had been. I used to think it was just her personality, soft-spoken, thoughtful, the kind of woman who listened more than she talked. Looking back now, I realize I never really asked what she was thinking. I just assumed she was fine. She smiled when clients came in. She kept the house organized. She showed up. The necklace had belonged to her mother. It was the only thing of value her family had left after her father lost everything in a bad business deal in the 70s. Eleanor wore it on our wedding day. She wore it to both of our kids' graduations. She wore it the night we signed the lease on our 6th location. It wasn't flashy, just a simple gold chain with a small sapphire pendant, but it meant everything to her. About 5 years before she got sick, I noticed she'd started pulling back. She stopped going to Sunday dinners with my side of the family. She'd skip the holiday parties we used to host for our employees. When I asked her about it, she just said she was tired. I didn't push. I had 2 new locations opening and a logistics problem with our suppliers. I figured she'd come around when she was ready. She didn't. Eleanor was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in March, stage 3. The doctor said it had probably been growing for a while, maybe a year or more. She hadn't. Told me she'd been feeling pain. She hadn't mentioned the appointments she'd gone to alone. I only found out because Derek saw a bill on the kitchen counter and asked her about it. I took 2 weeks off to go with her to treatment. Then one of our managers quit and I had to cover his shifts. Then we had an audit. Then the landlord at our Allentown location threatened to double the rent. I kept telling Eleanor I'd slow down once things settled, but things never settled. She said she understood. She always said she understood. Her sister Monica came to stay with us for the last 2 months. I was grateful for that. Monica cooked, helped Eleanor to her appointments, sat with her during the bad nights. I was there when I could be, but I was still running the business. We had 18 employees depending on us. I couldn't just let it fall apart. One night in late September, I came home around 11 after closing up the Greensburg location. The house was dark, except for the lamp in the living room. Eleanor was sitting on the couch with Monica. They both looked at me when I walked in, and I could tell they'd been talking about something serious. "Everything okay?" I asked. Monica stood up. "I'm going to bed," she said, and left the room. Eleanor folded her hands in her lap. She looked smaller than I remembered. The chemo had taken her hair, her color, most of her weight, but it was her eyes that scared me. They looked distant, like she was already somewhere else. "Richard," she said quietly, "when was the last time we just sat together?" I didn't know how to answer that. I sat down next to her, and we stayed there, in silence for maybe 10 minutes. Then my phone buzzed with an email from our accountant, and I got pulled into a thread about quarterly taxes. When I looked up, Eleanor had gone to bed. That was the last real conversation we had. Eleanor passed in early October. The service was small. Family, a few friends, some of our longtime employees. I gave a short speech about how strong she was, how much she'd meant to the business, how proud I was of everything we'd built together. People cried. I didn't. I think I was too numb. Monica didn't speak to me at the funeral. She sat on the opposite side of the room during the reception and left without saying goodbye. I thought maybe she was just grieving in her own way. I didn't realize she was angry until 2 weeks later when she called and told me she didn't want to see me anymore. "You weren't there," she said, her voice flat. "You didn't hear her at night. You didn't see how many times she looked at the door hoping you'd come home early. She didn't want the business, Richard. She wanted you." I tried to argue. I tried to explain about the employees, the bills, the responsibility. Monica just hung up. I started going through Eleanor's things a few days after that. I wasn't ready, but Derek said we needed to clear out the house if we were going to sell it. That's when I found the donation bags. I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to get through it. I grabbed clothes, shoes, scarves, anything that wasn't nailed down. I didn't check the pockets. I didn't look in the drawers carefully. When I found the necklace, I stood there in the middle of the bedroom for a long time. The bag was still half full. I didn't know if I'd already donated the others. I called the Goodwill in Shadyside. They said they'd received 2 bags from me 3 days ago, but they'd already been sorted and sent to the floor. They couldn't track individual items. I drove there anyway. I spent 4 hours going through every rack, every bin, every jewelry display. I asked the staff. I left my number. Nothing. Derek wouldn't talk to me about it. When I tried to bring it up, he said, "You didn't even know what mattered to her, Dad. You still don't." That's when it hit me. He was right. I didn't know. I knew where she kept the bills. I knew which cleaners she preferred for the shirts. I knew she liked her coffee light. No sugar. But I didn't know what she was feeling in those last months. I didn't know she'd wanted me to just stop and sit with her. I didn't know the necklace was something she might have wanted to pass down, not throw away. I hired someone to go back to the Goodwill every week for a month. Nothing ever turned up. It was gone. I sold 4 of the 6 locations last year. Kept the 2 originals in Pittsburgh, but I'm barely involved anymore. I hired a manager to handle most of it. I didn't see the point in keeping busy. Derek lives in Philadelphia now. We talk maybe once a month, and it's always short. He's polite, but there's a distance that wasn't there before. He doesn't come home for holidays. Monica sends a card at Christmas, but that's it. I still have Eleanor's jewelry box. I look at it sometimes, at the empty spot where the necklace used to be. I've thought about replacing it, buying something similar, but that feels even worse somehow. Like I'd be trying to rewrite what happened. I go to the cemetery every few weeks. I don't say much when I'm there. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. Doesn't feel like enough. I didn't mean to doesn't change anything. I just stand there and think about all the nights I came home late, all the times I said I'd slow down once things were stable, all the moments I missed because I thought there'd be more time. There wasn't. You can build an empire and still lose everything that matters. Being busy isn't the same as being present. People don't remember how hard you worked. They remember whether you showed up. And some things, once they're gone, don't come back. Not the necklace, not the time, not the person who needed you to just sit still and stay.